Shatov is the one murdered. We are not going to get into the murder right now, but we are going to do a deep dive on his character as it appears in parts 1 and 2. The murder is in part 3, where we learn a lot more about him. But now let us ask, what does he stand for? As we saw in video 6, Shatov borrows some aspects of Stravogin's character and then transforms them into a political stance. He is a species of nationalist, a believer in the spirit of the people, at least, is the first experience of right and wrong for most human beings. People are political animals. They get their first sense of what is right and wrong from their language, from their political community, from their environment, broadly understood, or as Aristotle would say, from their regime. A central aspect of a political community's identity is its commitment to God, its response to the ultimate questions of human destiny. With apologies to Plato, Shatov emerges at first blush as someone who sees the political community as a cave, and only as a cave. We need our poets, and no amount of enlightenment will make the cave anything but what it is. Modern science is something that corrodes the political commitments made within the cave. Modern science corrodes civic religion, and all political communities are held together by civic religion. This is Shatov's politics. Shatov was born as Varvara's serf, and hence Stravogin, Varvara's son, must have known him as a serf too. Student activity, presumably revolutionary stuff, led him to be expelled from the university. How he got on the university, we are not told. Presumably, Varvara sent him. Instead of coming home, however, after expulsion, Shatov went abroad. He was an atheist. He believed in free love. He married a pert Russian girl abroad, but they parted after 3 weeks as free people not bound by anything. As he is introduced in part 1, chapter 1, instead of an introduction, we are told that abroad Shatov had radically changed some of his former socialist convictions and leaped to the opposite extreme. We are not told why he changed at that time in the narrative. We next see Shatov in a discussion group with Stepan Tropinovich near the end of part 1, chapter 1. Stepan is praising the great Russian intellectuals, Gogol and the liberal Belinsky, for loving the Russian people and being willing to sacrifice for them. Shatov shouts back at Stepan, "These men of yours never loved the people, never suffered for them, or sacrificed anything for them. They didn't even know the Russian people as a whole, who they were, nor did they care to know them. Those intellectuals," Shatov says, "were vile atheists or indifferent and treated the people of Russia with loathsome contempt as deplorables who cling to God and guns." There are some great allusions to Russian literature in Shatov's rant here. It shows another aspect of his character and thought. Listen to Shatov tell the body of liberals around Stepan what he really thinks. "Those who have no people have no God. You may be sure that all those who cease to understand their people and lose their connection with them at once, in the same measure, also lose the faith of their fathers, and they will become either atheists or indifferent. That is why all of you and all of us now are either vile atheists or indifferent, depraved trash, and nothing more." An intellectual class claiming to follow silence and alienated, or even hating its fellow countrymen. There is no group to lead in Russia. Next, we see Shatov at the beginning of part 1, chapter 4, The Lame Girl. Lisa would like to meet with him about a literary project to use newspapers to write an annual account of the spirit of the people, what its feelings are and what its direction is. He seems to think it is a worthy project because it could reveal, if it is objective, the spirit of the people. He begs off of it because he cannot tell if Lisa is doing Pyotr's bidding when she raises the question of a printing press. That he would be interested in giving an account of the spirit of the people at any particular time should not be surprising. He would love the people, and to love them, he must know their ways. Soon thereafter, we learn about his political conversion. He tells our narrator about it in Part 1, Lame Girl, Section 4. Shatov went to America with Kirillov, the God-man nihilist. They thought America was the hardest social condition for human beings. They were exploited and robbed legitimately through manipulating of prices and wages. Both left America and neither turned back to socialist politics. Kirillov became an advocate for suicide, that is, a pro-suicide activist. Shatov turned to Slavophilism, a love of his people's blood and soil. Then we get the slap, Shatov's slap of Stravogin on page 205, the penultimate page of Part 1, as I mentioned in video 5. Stravogin goes and visits Shatov during his walk about town at the beginning of Part 2. Stravogin's longest discussion in that section is with Shatov. It covers Part 2, Chapter 1, Night, sections 6 and 7, pages 239 through 256. Section 6 concerns their relations with the revolution, while Section 7 concerns their most intimate personal beliefs. Their conversation ends with Shatov showing great personal concern for Stravogin and suggesting that Stravogin go and visit the Bishop Tikhon to bare his soul because something is troubling him deeply. Stravogin follows Shatov's advice in the withdrawn chapter, more on which in a future video. How does the conversation get to that point? What does Stravogin come to talk with Shatov about? Nearly everyone thinks Stravogin is a man with a Corsican bloodlust, forgetting nothing and settling scores with those who have wronged him. Shatov's slap would invite such retaliation, such people think. Shatov even buys a revolver to protect himself. But deep down he knows Stravogin and does not actually get bullets or powder. Shatov is defenseless when Stravogin comes to visit. Why the slap? Stravogin asks Shatov. Shatov says that it is not because of the rumors that Stravogin had been making it with his old wife. It is not because of the rumors that had circulated that Stravogin was getting it on with Shatov's sister Daria, nor that he had married the lame girl. Shatov slaps Stravogin because Stravogin had disappointed Shatov, had fallen and lied. We don't even learn what that means. Stravogin comes to tell Shatov his business, namely, that Pyotr Stepanovich is aiming to kill Shatov. Both men had belonged to a revolutionary society, or at least so the revolutionary society thought. Both were vulnerable. Shatov especially knows it. He tried to leave the organization, but things were not yet settled. Stravogin and Shatov know that Pyotr Stepanovich is not a man to mess with. He could kill and rally others to help. Shatov forgives himself for messing with the shameless, giftless, lackey-ish absurdity of this revolutionary movement. But how could Stravogin ever get messed up with them? He kind of drifted toward them, I guess. But Shatov is sensitive to Stravogin's real pain, though we readers don't yet understand it. Shatov realizes that Stravogin has come to confess and to seek punishment for his past deeds, but he cannot come to articulate it. Shatov lays out his political vision in Section 7, and he traces that vision of things to Stravogin. The only God-bearing nation on the whole earth, come to renew and save the world in the name of a new God, and to whom alone it is given the keys to life and a new world, is the Russian nation. Shatov changed gods, which is hard to do. But it was Stravogin who had planted God and the motherland in his heart. Stravogin had offered a critique of socialism to Shatov, and Shatov had worked it out. Socialism exists against the nation and against God. Still, Stravogin himself does not believe in God, and neither does Shatov, as we learn in this section. Here is Shatov's basic argument. Nations demand the sacred, something at which the people will not laugh. Science corrodes a sense of the sacred, and socialism is a branch of science. Socialism assumes that the world is material, there is no soul, and everything is made by man. A people can only strive to make themselves, not be made, or not achieve an end outside of themselves under the socialist way. But this is precisely what a people cannot be. Nations are formed and moved by another ruling and dominating force, whose origin is unknown and inexplicable. This force is the force of the unquenchable desire to get to the end, while at the same time denying the end. It is a force of a ceaseless and tireless confirmation of its own being and a denial of its own death. But the ultimate end of such striving is outside the nation, in a sense. It is the seeking for God. God, Shatov says, is the synthetic person of the whole nation, taken from its beginning and to its end. Nations connect people to eternity through their ways, and those ways add up to a striving for ultimate meaning, to God, to a being and a moral truth that unites a people. Without such a unity, without a God, a nation is weaker. This is the first stage of Shatov's politics, which, when he is done, Stravogin analyzes for us as follows. You reduce God to a mere attribute of nationality. No nation, no God. And if this is Shatov's view, God himself seems to be an invention, just as the socialists had thought. It is just that the invention was a different one. For socialists, someone invented God to act as an opiate for the masses. For nationalists, someone invented God to make political life, good and evil, possible. Agreement on invention, but difference on purpose. This is not what Shatov is doing. He cries out, "No! I rise the nation up to God. The nation is the body of God. Any nation is a nation only as long as it has its own particular God and rules over the other gods in the world with no conciliation." He mentions the Jews, Rome, and France. When he is done with this speech, he is foaming at the lips. Stravogin says he recollects that these were exactly his thoughts years ago when they talked about the matter. Stravogin is the father of nationalism in this book, though Shatov is its key proponent. Still, neither believe in God. They believe in lifting the nation, in the need for God as the savior of nations or as the hunger of the nations. Shatov hopes to believe someday. Stravogin now says that he might believe in something too. Shatov sees Stravogin's spiritual anguish and traces it, rightly, to Stravogin's past, his remorse for his past acts, and to his denial in theory of the actual differences between good and evil. You are the ultimate squire, Shatov tells him. You've lost the distinction between good and evil because you've ceased to recognize your own nation. Tikhon might be able to help Stravogin, but that will not be a political remedy. We have seen Shatov's general disposition, one in need of God, but which doesn't yet believe in God. Great changes are coming to Shatov, and not just in becoming dead. He lifts the nation up to God through belief in God and not belief in the nation. We will see about his conversion later. Now let us turn to our revolutionary, a man who also tries to get Stravogin enlisted in his cause.